Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. It's another Friday, it's another Coding in Seal Friday, and I'm excited today to be coding about infinite loading. Infinite scrolling, load more, automated load more. You may hear this in quite a few ways, but in any case, we'll make it happen today. I think it's one big UX win when you manage to do this, and we'll do it in this app that we've been building over the streams and the YouTube videos as well, the SvelteKit app. So this is an app that is actually live. This one is running on localhost, but I've managed to get the SvelteKit domain legitimately as well, not just because I like cats, but because I do live in Catalonia. And we have this place where it lists all the ideas that people with a specific role in this app can create and publish for everyone. And then if you're inspired in a weekend, if you have some extra time, if you get some learning time at work, pick any one of these, make your startup. You don't even need to thank anyone, credit anyone. Ideas should be free because the implementation is the really tricky part of any app. In any case, what we'll be doing today is all about infinite loading. So this only has a few ideas, maybe like 15 or something. So it's not that bad to load all of them on the server, but at some point the ideas will be too many. You'll have like hundreds of ideas. Or if you have a blog or something like that, then you may have a comment section and then Mr. Beast links to your blog or whatever it becomes trending on whichever website. And then you get this Reddit hug of death or whatever else. Everyone is visiting your website. Everyone is leaving comments. Then you have like 1 trillion comments to go through. And the page, the hot blog post that just was about to go viral doesn't load again because your app is trying to get too many comments. Something is falling over. The browser of the user cannot render it even if your tech stack is all right. So at that point, you need to consider doing pagination. And hopefully not on that point. Hopefully you've considered it before. There is no music in the background of this video because I was planning to create like a playlist by songs from Artlist, not a partner. I'm definitely not partnering up with anyone for these. But I was considering to use Artlist for like licensed music that you can get on a subscription or something. However, I cannot get a license, and debugging this, you can see all the JavaScript errors and how they console log like my Google credentials as well, which is probably not good. So do not let this happen to you when people want to consume your content or, buy a subscription or be upsold or whatever. Make it happen. Make sure that there are no barriers there. But at the same time, if you're feeling stressed at work, if you're feeling that, we need to deliver this feature now, I think most of the time that's like fake pressure. Like working with Babylon Health, that's where you give a wrong diagnosis and then things can really go wrong. But for more websites, for most things, then, it's usually fake pressure. Even Google can go down for a while and then millions of websites go down with it. Lots of e-commerce sites are down when it's like Black Friday or whatever else, and they lose revenue from that, and then they still go on. So do your best to make your websites robust and to avoid those things, and don't stress too much about quick feature delivery or anything like that. Anyway, this shouldn't have been let me preach about stuff moment. It should be about infinite loading, but we did capture that we won't be wanting to fetch all the ideas forever. When you have tons, this will be causing problems. So what we'll do today is to only fetch a few. And it's an interesting question how many we should be fetching. But in any case, if the user is engaged with this part of the website, if they're reading your blog and they are actually engaging with the comments, you will want them to be able to see them all, see all the ideas, see more comments, that sort of thing. And we'll accomplish that by doing infinite loading eventually. So we'll be figuring out that they've scrolled in a position where they should be getting more ideas to read if we have them. And we'll be starting by fetching them on click. So the easier way out, potentially, instead of doing it automatically on scroll, we'll be doing it by clicking a big button that we'll be putting in the end. To start with, Then we'll try to redo this animation that we did in the last stream, where we are having the ideas fly in. We do want that to happen nicely even when you load the rest of the ideas, when you click the button and you fetch the rest of the ideas. How will that work? I'm not really sure. This is a stream where we'll figure stuff out. And then we will actually refactor to implement the infinite loading. So people will not need to click on anything. It will just appear for them. All of this, fetching more data, may need us to do some refactoring for niceness, to do better state management and engage with Svelte stores. As it happens now, we're just exporting the ideas, which get magically loaded by the ideas shadow endpoint, which I've mentioned in my super popular bread and butter video about SvelteKit endpoints that will need to be refactored itself. Unfortunately, I cannot refactor videos because SvelteKit is going to have some quite breaking changes. So we'll see how that will go down. I do like the changes, or the idea behind the changes overall, for sure. So that's by the by. And in the end, it's been asked of me by Ludwig, cool subscriber and fan who participates and watches these streams, to try to do an animation on hover, which I think I attempted to do last time and I couldn't find like a nice API to do it. So maybe we'll make the button be bigger when you hover, or the star go bigger when we hover. We'll see how that goes. So hello, Cookie5 Media in the chat. Let yourselves known in the chat. But it is time to get started with coding. So the first thing is, the whole concept is that we wouldn't want to have like a limitless fetching of ideas here. And we've actually implemented this for that video I talked about. So if I were actually to pass in limit 5, this should only fetch 5 ideas. 5 is an unfortunate number to say because it actually ends up being quite at that place. So it's not obvious, it's where my head is. But now maybe you should be able to see that it just about fits. Let's just limit 1 and be done with it. So we do have that limit in functionality. We can fetch fewer ideas than we want. And maybe to make it more obvious for the stream, let me see just how I look. I happen to have like quite big ideas here. So we'll just limit to 1 and then have a big button appear. Because I'm gonna remove the address bar. So we'll just have 2 ideas appear here, and then we'll have a big button to fetch more. That's the first stage, render those. You'll still have the button some more, so long as there are more ideas to fetch. And then we'll refactor into having that fetch happen automatically as you've run out of ideas to see. Hello, Alexa in the chat as well. And I always need them on my side. Good fortune gods of coding. All right, so we do have that limiting functionality. So as a refresher of the magic data loading that SvelteKit currently does, if you export a variable, if you export ideas here, then it will see if your route, which is ideas.svelte or /ideas in the URL, do we have a file that is a sibling file of that? Do we have an ideas.ts? Does it have a shadow endpoint? And indeed, this one has. So Svelte, for us, will fetch the data from this endpoint, or run this endpoint behind the scenes when it's written on the server. It will fetch the data on the browser if you're doing already client-side navigation. But in any case, if this is returning the export let you got here, this will get populated by whatever logic you have in here. So we have an ideas repo. We are getting all the ideas based on the limit that defaults to 50, and we can make it default to something smaller, I suppose. But now we want to be able to get the next page as well. We want to be able to say, all right, you got me the first 2, then give me 2 more. Sometimes you want to specify, you want to have the ability for the user to specify how many they want per page, how many ideas they want per page. But I think for now, we won't allow for that sort of customization. We'll just have the user tell us, I want this many ideas and this page of ideas. And the size of the page is implied by the limit, I guess. Maybe we can refactor this. Not sure. But it does mean that we'll need to update our ideas repo here, where we have a getAll that gets a limit and a match. What does this do? I don't even remember. A specific idea? Maybe. But we'll want to account for page. We'll want to be able to get a specific page as well. And the page will also be a number. It's the getAll method. So it doesn't actually getAll. That's another thing. So my getAll thingy doesn't actually get them all. It gets, you know, a page. It gets a few of them. It gets up to this limit and it gives you a specific page. But this shouldn't be needed to be defined. And then let's go to our implementation. In the repo here. And we are using Supabase behind the scenes for this. And I'm not sure what they call the pagination there. So it's probably offset, I guess. It's probably offset if you want to get something after a specific place. So if we have the page, which is a number, and we have the limit, we can think that this is the page size. So if we are on page 2, we'll want to get limit times 2 minus 1 offset. Is offset really an API that these guys have? Maybe not. Maybe some quick Googling is in order. Supabase offset. Limit offset. Nope. Skip. Skip is also something that they usually say. Instead of limit, I guess you need a range. Okay, fair enough. So I think actually instead of limit, we need range. Is that a real thing? Looks like it's a real thing. And to have it work the same, we'll want it to be from 0 to limit. So let's see if that still works. Interesting. I guess we're getting the off by 1 classic engineering error because this should be inclusive, I suppose. So the total count will be so index 0 will be 1 entry, so we need to subtract 1 from this. And this seems to be working. So to get the second page of results, what we'd need to do, the start is GitHub Copilot. Is that actually true? Let's see. So that doesn't feel true. But maybe it is. So if they want the first page, this will be 0, and then this will be fine. We know that we want then to be limit minus 1 to start with. Does GitHub Copilot say something more? So limit minus 1 plus start was correct. And I don't need the parentheses there. If I'm looking at the second page, then I want to start at that one. Yeah, I think Copilot got it. maybe not. No, we said that we want this to default to 1. So, first page, we got it. If we started with the second page, it starts with the countdown one. And let's remove the limit for just a moment. Ooh, interesting. If we remove the limit, it just flips out. So we've probably made something weird here. Doesn't look like I ended up using this maths parameter, but we'll figure it out. Let's have it work with a limit for now and see what happens. So we claim that this is not needed and will default to 1. I think that this needs to have like a default at this point. So not needed, but with a default. And I can define this. Maths, we're not doing anything with maths, are we? Yeah, that's a different story. I guess maths is used to have some criteria for your get all for your queries. So you can say, I want to get all that maths, like this description, or do some text search on description. Maybe that's an experiment I accidentally committed. So it gets the first page correctly, it gets the second page correctly. How do we know to give the correct instruction for this? So let's say that this defaults to 2. And let's say this also defaults to 1. Guess this is null. Would this be... Just trying to think. We are also using the same, I think, API here. Same repo to fetch the ideas here, so I don't want to make things too crazy. So let's pass this here. And now we want a button. On click of the button, we're making a request to the same endpoint, this endpoint, but are actually getting the second page of results. And we can still not have a limit there. And what I was saying about the index.svelte route, it also has a link of ideas, this page, and it also has a shadow endpoint now. Which has the latest ideas, so which is using the same repo, so we need to make sure that we don't break this API either. But this one is not dynamic. You cannot add some cheeky query parameters here and actually see many ideas. All right, let's add a button. Cute. We'll need to make sure that this also flies in afterwards. Maybe. After everything's been in. We won't be doing it like that, so it doesn't really matter. But I wanted to show the ability to make this bigger. Maybe not. We have a big button here. We can use this for now to make things more readable for the stream. But we need to specify what it's going to say inside. And we want, when we click the button, to fetch the second page of results. So on click, we can define a load more method. What will that do? Don't really know. But it will happen when we click it. And I can only imagine we'll be fetching this. This seems kind of crazy. I'm sure that Copilot didn't get it too correct here. We do not want any parameters in this method, so I won't be bothered to type it as an event handling method. Hey Ludwig. In the chat, I talked about how we'll definitely be making like something scale up. I don't know if I'll manage to make it with motion or what, but I'll manage to make it responsive on hover. So the limit we won't care about, and it's a page parameter that we want to ask for, and just let's make it ask for the second page of results. And then we have like the more ideas, next ideas page. And then we don't need to console log it, I guess. Maybe make this async. Maybe await this, so next ideas is not going to be a promise. And we can open the inspector, look at the network tab. Piper Street asks, how do you find suggestions in general from Copilot? I think they're awesome. I don't know if that is because I usually do prep for these streams, and if not as much these streams, for the videos especially. Everything I'm about to record for a video, I've already done, then I delete and I retype it again. So maybe it's kind of cheating a little bit. Copilot, it knows what I had there before and then I delete it, so it makes more accurate predictions. But maybe not. Maybe I'm doing common things that all engineers in GitHub are doing, so it knows how to predict pretty good stuff. But now with waiting this fetch, it started adding like some on-mount craziness. So usually good. Sometimes something that will look correct but will actually have a bug, and that's slightly annoying, but more helpful than not, I would say. Great question. Right, so we're saying if I click this button, we should fetch more ideas. Doesn't seem to be happening. Which is unfortunate. We also want this to have some headers. And the headers we want are accept application.json. So I'm not sending application.json, I want to accept application.json. And another instance where it went slightly, well, heavily over gear with the braces there, Copilot, and kind of made me lose it. But this should be enough. So I'm clicking the button and nothing happens. Is that how event handlers work in SvelteKit? Probably not. So let's confirm. More ideas. Yeah, this ain't happening. So is it? Of course, this is a custom component and I'm not passing down the on-click handler. So just, if you'll excuse me, just to not overwrite too many things. For this simple experiment, I'll just copy the classes, paste them here, and then this should work without problems. So now we're hitting the ideas second page. So the problem before was that my big button was a Svelte component, but I wasn't exporting the on-click method, so I wasn't able to override and pass it down here. So let's forget this ever happened. Never imported this. But now when we click, we do hit the ideas and request for the second page. And yeah, I think we can see that it is actually the second page of ideas. So that's good. That's pretty good. We can go back. And we have the data that we want. We have the second page of ideas. How do we append it into the things that we've rendered in the screen? And that's a good question. That's one of the things that I wanted to figure out on the fly. So I don't really want to change this variable because I'll need to change this variable name, and I like this being ideas. So maybe we have let all ideas, which starts as the ideas. Maybe not. We have fetched ideas. This is the thing that we will probably refactor to use Svelte stores later. So the fetched ideas will also be ideas with authors and start. And then we can derive all ideas to be, or rendered ideas, I'm not sure, but we can calculate this to be all the ideas and the fetched ideas. And then once we've successfully fetched this, we can say that the next ideas page, the fetched ideas, equals what Copilot trying to help, what fetched ideas was, plus whatever we fetched just now. To me, this looks crazy enough to work. Let's click this. I assume this array has changed, but of course we're not doing anything with all ideas. And we should. So here, instead of just going through each of the initial ideas, we want to go through all ideas. So now, I was expecting a dramatic ta-da here. Next ideas page is not iterable. This one is not an array. Yeah, makes sense, because the ideas are nested here. So spread data ideas here. All right. Let's hope this is nice. Awesome. So we managed to fetch the second page of ideas. We do want this to be dynamic and always be fetching the next ideas page, because now if I click again, it will bring in the same ideas, which is not what we want. It's fresh ideas that we want. So I will take a little sip of coffee and have a little break and answer Marcel in the chat. Have you already heard about the soon coming SvelteKit update with different routing and so on? Yes, I read the accompanying blog post as well by Rich. I followed a few of the discussions in the end, and I did mention that I did really like my bread and butter page endpoints and shadow endpoints and all of that stuff with SvelteKit, magically load data with SvelteKit video. But it looks like, I think it will still be helpful, but lots of things change. Lots and lots of things will change, and mostly the names of things, I suppose. I do think the changes are for the better, because the reason I like Svelte is people have a vision of how they should be building apps, and they manage to deliver something that I enjoy using. So I'm sure the changes are both necessary and for the better. But until we try them out and see how they click in like more real life scenarios, like I wouldn't know if they are better. I was thinking layouts before this change, and there were a few things that would be a bit tricky with the current way SvelteKit does things. While with a new way, it seems like your hands are more free and loose, and you have fewer opportunities to shoot yourself in the foot, as they say. So I'm hopeful. It will need work and migration, but that's why I want my next video to be on playwright and end-to-end testing, because always you need to be able to adapt and roll with the punches with whatever happens. Even if the framework is stable, then your product, the apps that you're going to be building, will not be stable. Your product needs to evolve. The moment you release something, you learn more about it, about the users that are using it, and you need to be able to adapt fast. So if you have the end-to-end testing coverage, you are more resilient and more able to refactor and upgrade and do whatever else. So looking forward to doing that video as well. And then maybe revisiting how do we now do magically loading data in SvelteKit. Oh man, Piper asks, goodness, how close do you think they are to 1.0? I definitely do not know. If you had asked me like 2 years ago, I would equally not know at all when will be the 1.1 release. All I know is what I've read Ritz say, which is we're getting closer with this. So I really don't know. It would be fun to have like a site to do like engineering bets for fans. Like, do you think it's going to be over under like 6 months or like 6 years? What is it going to be? Who knows? And yeah, console log type testing is always there. I feel bad whenever in the streams I try to reach for like console log the data here, because I know that in real life when I pair program with people, I do encourage test-driven development. There's nothing more satisfying than having your test first implemented according to the test, the design you have there, and then you run it on screen and it just works. That's magic. But I think the nature of these streams do mean that people find it a bit more boring if I try to write the test first, and also have no idea what I'm doing at this point. They're more exploratory. It's not like someone tells me, you know, this is the product, this is the spec, this is what you need to build, go do it. This is very, very much exploratory. And for that, I think console login is essential. It's and debugging, like running the debugger and that sort of thing. You cannot understand the things that you don't know in advance enough to write the tests. Danny says that looks like one will be releasing soon. So if we're doing the over-under bet, I suppose Danny is more optimistic and may win if that does happen. All right, I will set my 25 minutes focus timer and go back to the plan. We've talked about infinite loading. We didn't talk about pagination, but I guess that's the old school way of showing data. Or if you have an application with lots of data, at the end of the page, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it tells you you're currently on page 6, and you have a next and a back, or the arrows, carets type of thing, and then you click and you go to that page specifically. But especially for user-facing apps that aren't like productivity-based and that sort of thing, you usually have this thing where the user gets some items on screen, some comments, some blog post titles, some ideas, and then at the end, you have the load more button or something equivalent. I do think that's like more futuristic. That's nicer. I think that's nicer UX than literally having the numbers in the end. And we're in the process of fetching the items on click, I would say. We're close. We're doing it. Right, so this works once. This is the classic place where I was talking about, tests, and this would have been easier to do if I did write the test first, even with Playwright. But we're just making it up. Cool, so this needs to be dynamic. We can say that page starts as the first page, current page, last fetched page. I don't know what would be more obvious. Last page loaded, maybe this. Now I want to pass this here, but for that I need to change this to a template literal. Say page equals page. And then after this, I want to say that the last page loaded is the page indeed. So this should keep getting the next pages. Don't know how to break this down further for readability, but here's to more, here's to more, here's to more. Great. So we are flying through this, but what happens when we're out of ideas? I guess it won't crash, it will just return an empty array, which is fine. We could change the API to return something like has more, or how many items are remaining, what's the total count, something like that. That's how you'd usually do REST, a classic REST API, for example, with pagination built in on that level. But I'm not sure if we'll do that. Maybe we'll do it on the point of, oh, we're trying to make all of this nicer afterwards, because this is quite hacky for sure. But in any case, first call accomplished. If we do have like a million ideas at some point here, we won't be fetching a million records. We will be only fetching 2. I guess when I commit this, I'll change this to like 7. Usually you look at the most common devices that your app gets deployed to, and then you set that as the default. So maybe 7 if I'm the person that the most commonly visits this app, or 8, I guess. You'd want it to set it at the point of you have like one thing that's kind of off screen. But our goal now, I guess, is we click the button and we want the rest of the items to fly in. And I'm not sure how we'd do that, because on the previous episode, we did manage to target all the ideas that we have currently rendered with this. But if I just do this thing again, after the ideas have been re-rendered, will it animate all of them? Not really. I guess this runs before the re-render happens, which is interesting. Quite interesting indeed. I'll try to check run method on render. This may be like a prime thing to do with the built-in Svelte stuff, which is made to work really well with stuff like, if this is not in the DOM, do nothing. The moment this first appears on the DOM, then do something. But yeah, so this is like component cycle stuff. So now I'm thinking that maybe each of these things each of these blocks of ideas are components, like ideas page. Maybe. Because if this of these components and ideas, then each one of those can have an on mount, I suppose. And I'll try to do that. See how well it works and how readable it is. So I'm gonna create an ideas page.svelte component. I will put it in the components folder. And I suppose it won't have the UL. I don't want like a different UL for each, but maybe it would make more sense to have a different UL for this. Nah, that'd be cheating. Each one of these should be its own thing. But then, if they don't have a container, what do you do? let's start like this, just to get the effect out, and then we'll figure it out how to do it better. So on mount, we want to do something. I'm just gonna copy all of this script for the ideas page, and sorry, I forgot to autocomplete and turn on screencast mode. Whoops, maybe this helps. So on mount, we still want to do something. We still want to do exactly this. We don't want any load more functionality. We don't want ADS and all of that functionality. We do want the list container. And we do want this. We do want to be fed ideas. And then in this page, we actually want to refactor this into pages of ideas. So I guess all ideas is this. So all ideas is an it's an array of arrays. Should I call it all ideas, idea pages? Because then this is also an array of arrays. Which we should be spreading the fetch ideas that it has, but this should just be the array itself, not spreading this array. And then we can actually say that for each, maybe I'll try to do it, each idea pages I want to render the new component that we're writing, the ideas page. I'll call this ideas. Bring this in. And we won't want this. And right, I must be doing something wrong here. Because the fetched ideas, the fetched ideas, we want to spread them because that one is an array of arrays. For this to remain an array of arrays, this needs to happen. So now it should be happy. Still works. All right, somehow we made it work even though the code is questionable. And again, this is the thing that we may make a bit better with a Svelte store. We can have something in the store that says, these are the pages that we've set, like a map, a list, something, a record of this page corresponds, this index corresponds to this page, or something like that. But that's a story for later. And if we do reach the end, it still doesn't break, so that's good. And yeah, it would be nice to have like nicer animations to get the button further down, but we will not be keeping this button because we'll be doing this with with the common infinite loading way to do things. We won't need a user interaction to fetch more ideas. So what will we do? I guess we can keep the button and make this happen, like auto-click the button or something like that. When we brought in inView to do this nice little stagger animation, when we brought in motion 1 to do the stagger animation, we also find out there is this inView helper. And that supposedly you can watch, you can have it watch for an element of, and when it is on screen, then it will do something in response. I imagine that's how it works, but we'll see if it actually works. When it enters and leaves, interesting. So is there like a lazy loading, another way to call the infinite loading thing? So it's called lazy loading, not just to slander it. It's because we're not eagerly loading like all the stuff that could possibly be on the screen. We'll only load it later if the user really needs it. So, all right, so you return the method you want to run when it's out of the screen. So this will not run the same thing when it is on screen and off. Cool. So in here, wait a minute, should I have removed this? I think I should have had. Yeah, all this logic is now duplicated into here. And let me note that because we're doing this scope thing, we are only getting the items that are inside this page of content, inside this UL. We are not animating everything else. If we were just saying, grab me every list item, then every time we loaded more stuff, let's see if I'm making this up. Interesting. It's still inside this list container. Right, so what I actually wanted to say, scope does help if you happen to have like lists within a list in those level. But if we had given our container a class, like unique class name or something, even if this was unique, then it wouldn't be unique for every one of these pages that we have. So if we were targeting a unique class name li, it would work, but when you fetch more stuff, if you didn't have the reference to the list container and you were doing document here, because that was a question from the comments, like why are we doing all this reference nonsense, this binding nonsense? Maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe you just need to add a class here, which, yeah, that's definitely the easiest way to do it. And for most cases, I couldn't really think of a way where it would stop you. You would be able to make this unique and specific enough. But actually, as it happens, this one, well, I was expecting that this would make everything fly in, but it doesn't quite work. Unique class name. Did I call this correct thing? Yeah. So here, this class name is guaranteed unique in the code base just because I made it up here. But because of the way that we are using this component itself in doing the pagination here, so we keep rendering the same component again and again, then this animation that's meant to only catch things inside this component will not catch things inside this component. And usually you can do something in Svelte to guarantee that the classes are scoped, but I can't find a way for a class here, or a class that you define in like the style tag in Svelte. This would result in a unique class name just for this instance of the component, but I can't find a way to get a reference to this class. I don't know of it. So to safeguard against this, then that's why I'm doing the trick with the ideas, with getting a reference to the container, the binding stuff. So did I undo enough? So in order for this animation to only run for the newly fetched things, we are binding this HTML UL list element here, targeting everything inside it, everything inside the scope, and direct list item children, because we know that this directly has list item children here. That's what makes this have a stagger animation that actually works as intended, only for the new items that get back in. Cool. Problem here that we want to resolve is that it's probably not a good idea to have like unique list, unordered list, unordered list, unordered list. Ideally, we just have the one unordered list. This is the same thing. This is a list of the same thing. This is a list of ideas. So why are we having UL, UL, UL? The answer is because I haven't thought of a way to do this with better semantics, but we'll make it happen. All right. Back to having the load more happen when the button gets in view. And the idea is, I guess, when this component has rendered, so we'll want a non-mount here. After all, we'll say we can find this button. And again, we can get a reference to that button the same way as we do in ideas page. So we create, we say that we have let load more indicator, or whatever we want to call it, HTML element, doesn't really matter what it is. And for now, our load more indicator is the button, but it can be a different thing. And on mount, we can say when this thing gets in view, I'm not sure this is the actual syntax that GitHub Copilot actually kindly has tried to provide. So if load more indicator, if we don't have this thing, return, but if we do, load more. And if I manage to get my parentheses correct, this should eventually work. Interesting. We brought this motion. This is not where I want to get the on mount from. I want it from Svelte. So let's try harder. Yeah, looks better. And you can see the first one immediately firing because our pages are too small. So to make this a more realistic scenario, let's say that our limit is 7. And you start at 7. And then the moment you see the button, then you fetch more items. And just to simulate like a smaller screen, it's because I don't have enough ideas here. It fetches, and then it will fetch again once you get there. Or will it not? Maybe not. So I would have expected this to fetch again, but it didn't. Let's try to replay this in slow motion. So why didn't this refire? If I actually click the button, then it will work. But is there an option for whether once? Yeah. By default, it will fire just once. But, oh, that's cool as well. You can specify how visible, I guess, the element can be, if you want all of it. Pretty cool. But what's the API? Maybe TypeScript will help me here. So what are the options? Does it have options? No? Do I need to call it again when it stops? I guess. This is the root, this is the margin, it's the amount. That's it. I like how they say it's like, oh, by default, we'll do this. But I guess they mean that you'd need to set it up again. Oh well, we'll see if we need it, because we don't actually want the button anymore. Maybe we want the last one of the ideas to do this. Maybe not, I'm second guessing myself. So maybe we do actually want to run this again. So we're saying you can define something to happen when it's on screen. When it leaves the screen. And we can recursively make it do the same thing again. Set up this again. I'm thinking too early to make this readable. But maybe not. So set up infinite loading. Takes nothing. But what it does is kind of this. It runs inView, and then when the thing is off screen, sets up infinite loading again. So that level of recursion seems a bit silly. But first, let's see if it works, and then we can see if it if there is a better way to do it. So it works first time. Said it works first time, but not quite. Did it fire like a million times afterwards? All right, let's take a little break. And it's also always fetching the same page when set up like this. So probably not a good idea to do. Not a good idea to do it like this. We'll figure it out though. All right, coffee time. This definitely makes people better coders. Caffeine. If you're already addicted to caffeine, then it will make you a better coder. I know that when I wordle in the morning, I can tell how frustrated I am with a word by the amount of coffee sips that I need to actually get there in the end. Wordle, by the way, it's been really tough, and maybe not really tough, like really unsatisfied in the past like 1 month. And I don't know if it's still running on tens, or if there are people actually curating or selecting the words to run, but it's been kind of frustrating lately. I don't know if any of you participate in the Wordle happenings. definitely an inspiring story. I know that there are lots of tutorials to recreate Wordle in Svelte or Vue or wherever else. And it's important to remember that the key thing in Wordle is the quality of the words, and the person behind Wordle did have did crowdsource the quality of the words to their partner, and maybe family and relatives, other family and relatives. I'm not sure, but initially they got the words from a dictionary, and they were all the words you can find in a dictionary. Some of them you've never heard in your life, or I've never heard in my life. I'd say words like aphid, but we know how that turned out. And then the people would say, all right, this is a legit 5-letter word. And this is one that's in use. I understand what it is. And then from that created list is where Wordle would be drawing from. And with also some luck, it became like a huge success. But I do think the quality of the word list was a key factor there. The concept of the game is also very, very cool, of course, like that treasure hunt type of situation. Anyway, I don't know why I'm rambling about Wordle. I should be rambling about how do I make this have this. How do I make this fire again? Element or selector. There's an unstart. I wonder if I require the whole thing to be on screen, if that will help. But maybe not. All right, let's set up and maybe not quite yet. Let's go back to the agenda. We're fetching more items with onClick. We are animating them with motion 1, which is quite cool. Maybe just to rejig. We are almost there, refactoring for infinite loading. I may do the animations on hover to just rejig my brain. I do think to do the animations in motion 1, which you'll probably want to do if your animations are like more complicated, you will need to add some event handlers. So let's go to the idea card and try to make the empty star grow here. So one way to do this would be to be inspired by our idea space and see what we did there. Still all of that, and go back to the idea card. Paste all of that and say that on mount, hopefully brought in from Svelte, we want to animate, and we want a star element. We don't really care what it is. I think I will be able to bind this. So let's find out. So if it's not star, can I bind this? We'll find out. Let's call it up to star element. And then say if there is not up to star element, return. But if there is, then we want to animate it, and we want to make its scale go to 1.5. All right, so I'd be hoping that this would make this go bigger. But I think it hasn't really. And I think it should be this one. So let's see, we don't want this. We do set this up, but let's go to the Motion 1 docs and see if they have any examples or something for scale. Scale. Nothing? Surely they'll have something. They do have scale. This is adding keyframes, so it shouldn't really do anything. This is a great place for music in the background as I'm trying to think about this. So make this grow. Let's first see if we are catching this correctly. I guess we weren't. So was it the binding that doesn't quite work? Because the empty star is this. Maybe you cannot bind the way we've done this. Guess not. But we'd probably want to scope this like in the other component. So again, let's call this. We can call it make this grow, because I will refactor this to something else. And the idea is, how do I make this happen? Like the basis of this is, how do I make this happen just on hover? And I'm afraid that the answer would be creating two methods on mouse over and on focus and stuff. So instead of running this on mount, you do it on mouse over, and hopefully this works. Runs immediately. This is quite interesting. Still have this. There is something funky going on here. How come this is not targeting this? Maybe we could be getting the event target as well. I am slightly stumped, to a lot of stumped, but my answer, even if we did manage to set the on mouse over and on mouse exit handlers, I promise I'll try again in the future, would be, especially if it's a simple animation like this, just scaling it up, I would use tailwind. So is it a different star? I don't understand. Is scale 200 not a thing? It was trying to help me before. All right, it is a thing. So you could say that on hover, you scale it. So you do this, and you can do transition transforms here, and then it will appear slightly more naturally to do your transform. And you can also, because this works on enter as well, you can also say that on focus you scale. So it will work when event loading started. Huh. Well, it should work when you focus, but is that not the element that captures the focus there? Ah, it's the button. It's this. It's this that gets the focus. And because it's disabled, it doesn't work. I don't know. Something funky is happening there. But yeah, I guess we could do like some magic here to have it happen on. Wait a minute. So to have it happen on focus, on hover, and all of that without JavaScript, without having to set up like a million event handlers for this, I would suggest just use CSS. Like even if you don't want to use Tailwind, I would say do it with CSS, hover animations and that sort of thing. I know that the implementations of Motion 1 or Framer Motion for React do offer helper methods of what to run when something gets hovered. But since Motion 1 is just a more like rudimentary or low level, I never know which direction that is, type of helper, it cannot offer a on element hover, or I guess for now it does not offer something like that. If they're offering an inView type of thing, I'm sure they'd be able to add a gesture library, a gesture method to have it happen on hover. But for now, as far as I know, they don't have something nice. So I would suggest do simpler animations on hover and focus with CSS. I think that's what designers would also recommend, because designers also always want to be a bit more precise with their animations. I know that I get delighted whenever I hover over something and something changes, like a color, or it gets a bit bigger, or something like that. But that's about it. I wouldn't want something like too involved to happen. So yeah, the maybe lazy way out, use simpler CSS animations if you want things to happen on hover, because to capture all the events that you'd need to capture to recreate that effect with JavaScript is actually quite a lot of work. There are libraries to help you do that, then feel free to use them. But if there aren't, then do try to do it with CSS. All right, let's focus back on what we're gonna do and set a little timer. I guess I talked about this. Let me know if you have suggestions on how to do animations of hover, if you agree with the CSS hover solution that I provided, if you think that was a lame answer and a cop-out, and actually there are these libraries to make it happen in JavaScript, I'd love to know, honestly. But now it's time to go to the other part that I was kind of stumped with, which is, well, why does this only fire once? How do we make this fire again and again? I don't really know. It does say that by default it only runs once. So I don't think we're doing more network requests when it gets on screen again. Let's see. So we get the second page, but it's not like we get the second page again or like something weird is happening. We just never trigger again. And the question is, why? Why do they say in the docs that you, by default, it only runs once if there is no way to override the default? Default. Repeat. Oh. No, that's we're back on the animation stuff. We want to be here. So default, what they say? By default, it will only run once. By default, blah blah. Root, all of that. Yeah, sure. So do they mean that we need to set it up to fire again? So what do the controls do? Controls. Let's see. Did we fetch all the items? Is that our problem? Maybe. Let's make the pages smaller and see if... no, but we said we are not trying to fetch page 3, are we? So that's not the case. Still, just to check, let's say that we only get 4, not more, and we never hit it again. We may get around this by adding the listener to a different thing every time. But for that to happen, we'd need to be passing down something here. To say that the last element of the UL is on screen. Is there a selector we can use? I guess so. CSS last selector. I wonder if that would work. So for the last of the ideas, can we have that happen? Let's say that we have a section here. Let's say that the section, quickly, we're giving it like a class name to try things out. Ideas container, table name. And we want to see if the last thing, if the last child is rendered, then fetch. I think we're onto something there, but not quite. So I think what we need to do is after we fetched something, then we'd need to, we could re-add this. We can grab that thing again. We fetch the ideas. Fetch more, and we fetch even more. And I guess that's it. Every time we successfully fetch ideas, we attach another listener there, which kind of makes it work. And that's cool. Would we want a loading indicator, or would we want to try to grab the last item here? So let's say, instead of trying to find load more indicator, let's pretend that this doesn't exist. We don't want a button. We may put a loading spinner later, but for now, no. And what we want is to say that if the ideas container, if it's last tiled, is that the syntax? Nope. So if the ideas container, it's UL last tiled, has a list item last tiled, find that one. So when that one appears, so the last idea appears, then fetch more. I think this would work, but I guess not. Can I not sing these? Maybe I can, and I just need to paste this here. All right. So let's confirm that this works, and I can try to explain how it did work. All right, so in this instance, instead of getting a reference to something, which we could, I suppose, still, we're saying that in this container, the last of the ULs, what to do? Find the last of the list items, and I guess direct children as well. Track when this gets in view, when that gets in view, and if it does, then you load more items. That feels fair enough. And that's one way to do infinite loading. Would we want a loading indicator so that we are fetching more items? Yes, and it's kind of common to target that. It's kind of common to target your loading spinner when that gets on screen or is just about to get on screen, load more. But I think this may be good enough. I think it would be more important to solve what do I do with having multiple ULs around. I would rather this be the UL instead of section, and these to have list items. But then would I need like a dynamic class to say, has this been animated or not? Probably, and I don't like that. Well, I can't find another way to group them. All right, as I'm thinking about this, let's say let container, let's ideas container. And try to do the same trick that we did last time to reinforce our learnings. Here. Does it? Did I not type it? Is HTML element not a real thing? Oh, yes, it isn't. And then we can do the scope. These. And then pass this here. Nope. Cut and pass this here. the last ID element is going to be this. If no last idea, then also return. But if there is a last idea, then do this. Seems like it works, so we can do the same thing here. And let's see it happen. Does it happen too eagerly? It doesn't look like it. It does get a bit finicky when the first of the items appears, but you can see that it doesn't fetch them all. Just too fast because it's running locally, but let's confirm that it does run the page 3 kinda eagerly, but it doesn't run everyone super eagerly. So I'm kinda happy with that. I'd say that's good enough. I don't think we'd have like such a small page number anyway. It would be like at least 7 items. So we should be safe. Right. So this may be it for today. I'm not sure if I should actually put this in a Svelte store or not. This may be a bit too much. I may need to think about whether this is a good idea or not. We said that we may be trying to solve the list item problem. But how would we do that if we made this be the UL and every one of these be the list item? How would we stagger the animation? We'd need something to denote what has been done before. And I don't think you can have Svelte empty fragments, right? Not really. Which it makes sense. Even if we did, then the library couldn't like query selector only the ones that are in like inside that empty tag. There wouldn't be a way to denote them, unfortunately. Yeah, so I'm not sure how else to do that. If it is the list items here, all right, let's give it a go. Let's try to give it a no, because we'd need like multiple references. We'd need like a million references here. That's a bad idea. I was thinking that we could just do this, and then the binding would be on each list item. But then you'd need as many bindings as you have ideas, and that feels wrong to me. Let's try it. Nah, we wouldn't be able to do it, would we? Certainly not. Then we'd say bind this to list elements index. Nah, it's just a bad idea waiting to happen. Maybe you don't need that. Bind all of this, animate all of this. Did it just work? Yeah, I don't know how performant it's gonna be, but hey. So UL, and then can just go to the UL last child here. So somehow this will work, but I am worried about this craziness. Getting references to its list item doesn't feel correct. I'm not sure. And so let's just call this element. I'm struggling to understand why TypeScript doesn't understand that this array will only be an array of list elements anymore. If it's not null, you keep it. Yes. If it is null, this is an array of nulls and this should blow up. Not sure, it doesn't really matter. The idea is that by binding all of these things, I don't know, I'm not sure this is the best way to target for the stagger animation, even though it is nice that for doing it this way, didn't copy enough. Doing it this way, this actually works. We can see that, we should be able to see that we only have one unordered list with many list items, which is the thing we were supposed to do. It's better HTML semantics for sure. So that's what we should be doing, but I can't find a way to target this a bit better. Again, if we were to pass like a class here, it wouldn't be unique because we have multiple instances of this component, which is the ideas page component. So I'm not sure how to get around that. And I'm not sure how to get around TypeScript being a bit silly with this. But if I just said I don't know, undefined. Would it be happier? Nah, it's the same thing. Keep the ones that are defined. It's 2022. TypeScript, why can you not do this with your filter? Oh well, in any case. I'm also not sure why this actually works. Like, does it mutate the list element there if it's like null? I guess it's undefined. It also seems, did it actually work when it was undefined? Yeah. So it does mutate that array, and somehow it works, but I don't know how. In any case, I don't know what I'll commit from these things. I'll definitely commit the infinite loading bits, but I'll give the chat a bit of time to ask any questions. We did refactor for infinite loading. Maybe we refactor too much and we'll refactor back. And we didn't do the state management using Svelte stores, so Svelte writable. I'm talking about this. This may help if we have. Oof, I meant to open the docs. Svelte writable store docs. Having a writable store for our idea may help. Our ideas, these may help. Maybe as we navigate that, if you're already on this page, maybe you start with 3 of the ideas loaded, you don't need to fetch more. I don't know. I think that'd be a bit of over-engineering in this case. I think it's a less important optimization than fetching only as many ideas as we need. But it may be nicer instead of doing this type of logic where we have the starting ideas preloaded and we keep track of what's the last page we loaded, and then we keep track of all the ideas we've fetched in an array of arrays. Maybe it would be easier if we had a Svelte store that we're subscribing to, and that's the thing that gives us the ideas, and that's the thing we update once we do a successful fetch, and then it keeps track of which page we're on, and that sort of thing. That may make the code a bit more readable, but maybe not. Who knows? That's something we may try next time, or we may abandon this track altogether and try something new. So let me know in the comments. I have started setting up the next stream in advance, so you can even go there and let me know what you want to see. It has a placeholder thumbnail that says you suggest and you pick, which is true. I do go through the comments in the videos, the live streams, and all of that. And the things that keep appearing, I keep looking into. And if I think I can say something halfway decent, helpful, there, I will stream about it. If I think I can make it concise, I will actually edit a video about it, because that's more authoritative, I guess. I meant this to be more, I mean the live streams to be more exploratory, and I keep talking about how I see them as imposter syndrome cure, these live streams. You can see an engineer to be stuck and have to Google stuff and all of that, because it happens no matter if you're fresh out of bootcamp or you haven't seen code ever, or if you've been doing it for 20 years, you'll always find things you don't know, you've forgotten, you never knew to begin with, you have know, which can be dangerous, and then you get into even deeper rabbit holes, and maybe you get to showcase your Google foo, if anything else, to be able to find the answer. So yeah, seniority and experience doesn't mean that you fly through code and you implement features, as it may seem in some of the videos that again take prep and research to do, and editing afterwards to cut out the bits where I'm like, this and that, and I need to backstroke or do whatever else. And not ramble, which maybe is what I'm doing now. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Infinite loading is super important and is quite slick. I think older apps, especially if They are made of languages that don't have the browser in mind or apps in mind. Like recently I saw a Django app, and back in the day I was doing a lot with Laravel, and even backer in the day, further back in the day, I was doing stuff with Symfony and PHP and all of that. And there are so many frameworks that do so much stuff for you, including authentication and security and database migrations. That works. They can do everything for you. But even in the modern age, they don't do maybe enough with user interactivity. There are some, like even Rails, they're doing stuff with like WebSockets to update the DOM in a more friendly, interactive way. But I do think if we are working with JavaScript full stack, then we do have the opportunity to have these delightful user interactions be front and center from the get-go, and not be like a later on optimization, maybe we'll do it. So if you take anything from this, is design apps that leave your customers, visitors delighted. Was my ramblings leading up to this point? I don't know, but I think it's good advice. So one more chance to ask me any questions you want, or else I'll be reading the comments. Get in touch, see the code. I have links to the code base as always, and the code is open source. You can find it on GitHub. You can find my site. You can find my contact information, so you can even approach me directly if you wish. If not, I'll see how I feel about what's exciting in JavaScript land. If SvelteKit does do version 1, I'll definitely be covering that. I'm completely sure, but who knows when that will be. It's been a pleasure to work with everyone. I am hoping to have music in the background for the next one. I find that makes it a bit more fun for everyone. But until then, I wish you a very pleasant weekend. Have fun.